Our next speaker is here because I did a lot of work to make sure she would be here. And before I introduce her, I'm going to give a somewhat similar story that you will tell from LA, where I work a lot. I'm holding a story that ran last week. Downtown LA streetcar cost line estimate is shaved by $55 million. Boy, isn't that good news? Let me give you the backstory. Original estimate was about a little under 125 million. The local city councilman pressed the city council and others and downtown boosters. They had a vote, one of the strangest you've ever seen, and they enacted a $85 million tax fund, a tip basically, to pay for the vast majority of this, with another $25 million that was going to come from the federal government. However, it seems like no one had ever done any engineering estimates. And when that was done, the cost was $325 million. But they saved $25 million. What they did, I'm sorry, $55 million. What they did is they decided that they wouldn't run the line to the Walt Disney Concert Hall and the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion. Okay. Our next speaker is someone I really want you to pay attention to, because she is someone who has gone above and beyond for everyone here and everyone who is a taxpayer and a resident and a true citizen of this nation. LaVonda Atkinson is a cost accountant, well, that's the other reason I like her, who blew the whistle on tens of millions of dollars missing from San Francisco's billion-dollar, actually it's far more than $1 billion, Central Subway Light Rail project. When she was ordered to cover up the missing money, she refused and filed a whistleblower complaint with the city of San Francisco. And she's going to tell you her story and what she has gone through. Please join me in welcoming her.
While he does that, I'm going to ask you guys to write something down, and it will have meaning. So I'm going to give you the decoder ring. I don't know how many of you watched that Christmas story show that comes on every year. My family and I swear we must be addicted to it. Like we love the show. They'll play it for 24 hours and we'll just keep it on that channel. And one of my favorite parts is when the kid's talking about what he wants, and he wants this Christmas present, and at the end it's all about he's going to shoot his eye out. But before that, he's got this whole thing going on where he's trying to listen to the radio, and he's got this decoder ring, and so he's got to figure out what's the message. So I'm going to give you the codes, and then at the end we'll talk about what that means. So I want you to understand, and this is actually relative and related to the cost account. So code 1 means breakfast. So 1 means you ordered breakfast, 2 means you ordered lunch, and 3 means you ordered dinner. So we're going to keep it really simple. Okay, next thing is what you ordered. 10 means you ordered a pancake breakfast, 20 means you ordered a pizza lunch, and 30 means you ordered a steak dinner. So when I write down your order, if I write down a 1.010, that means you ordered breakfast and you wanted pancakes. So that's the little decoder. And that's actually going to have some meaning later. And you will be surprised, unfortunately, that this is how your tax dollars come. Okay, so we'll start with that. Why am I here? Well, as Tom said, I've been working in cost engineering for about 18 years. And I've worked with the Department of Defense, I've worked with the Department of Energy, I've worked in construction projects, transportation. I'm currently serving as a consultant to PG&E for all of the transit lines and substations in Northern California, so I'm reviewing all of those books and keeping track of that. So what happened is I started on the Central Subway project in San Francisco. So I'll give you a little bit of background about that, just to make sure that you know what it is. Even as I was talking to some people in the Bay Area a couple days ago, they didn't know what the Central Subway was. So we have a couple of transits in San Francisco area, and I'm only going to talk about a couple, and we have a ton of them. But the ones that primarily serve San Francisco and Oakland area is the BART system, which is an underground transit system, above ground and underground. And then there's the Muni system, which is in San Francisco, which is also above ground and below ground. And it's rail, it's tunnel, it's bus, it's kind of this mixed thing. And that's the San Francisco Municipal Transit. When I came in July, the program had started in 2009, a $1.6 billion project. And the reason I talk to people about it regularly is $1 billion of that came from you, federal taxpayers. $1 billion from federal taxpayers for this extension of an underground subway in San Francisco. And you agreed to this back in 1989. And you're actually going to get it in 2019. Isn't that great? 30 years later. Not only did everyone in here help pay for that because of federal dollars, we have about $600 million in California taxpayer dollars. So people in California who aren't in San Francisco have double paid for this. And the people in San Francisco passed Prop K, which contributed a couple $100 million to this $1.6 billion project. So this started back in 1989, and this is a true story. It is related to this Loma Prieta earthquake. So my son was born in 1989. I remember the Loma Prieta earthquake, which is why I'm going, so we asked for this when my son was born? My son's getting married this year. And we're not even going to have it ready. It's ridiculous. So, 1989. They come to the taxpayers and they say, hey, we want to put this bond measure on the books. We want you to vote for it. And one interesting thing, everything that I've heard here is really great. And one of the things that was mentioned by the previous speaker was about people seeing public transit as like this, something that the public is giving to the poor or something like that. And of course it's not meant to be that, but the other issue is it also has that connotation. I was in a car accident a couple weeks ago, wrecked my Mini, it's in the shop for 2 weeks. Every time I went to the bus stop, I felt like I wanted to walk with my keys. Like, I really have a car. I'm only going to be on the bus for a couple weeks. This really isn't me. You know, you really don't want to be on the bus, you know? And then we have the levels. You go, okay, BART's better. BART's not as bad. You know, you're getting on BART, it's much faster. It's a little bit more expensive, more likely to be, you know, professionals on there. And then once you transition from that and you get into San Francisco, then you get on the N-word. I remember when I first got the job, I was like, yeah, this is great. And then I was like, oh, this isn't BART. This is me. Okay, whatever, you know, I'm going to do my job. But I walk in July of last year, and I look at the documentation, and the first thing I say is, what the heck are you guys doing around here? You can't do this, you can't do this, you definitely can't do that. Can someone please explain to me what is 218% complete? Did you do it? And then you did it again, and then you did it a little bit more. Like, what's going on here? And they were so busy cooking the books, they didn't even do a good job cooking the books. And so, I've been on the job for a week. I call the SF Controller's office and I'm like, here's the problem. I ain't the new kid on the block. And I'm the only cost analyst who's been on the job who's been here in the past 2 years. So as I report this, it's not really anonymous. So I said, well, you know, can you help me? Can we talk about policy? Can you help me use your policy to make your people follow your policy? Well, not till you tell us what they're doing. Okay, well, I'll figure it out myself. What I did was I feigned ignorance and I fixed some things and put some, they spent a couple $1 million that they weren't supposed to spend. They spent it on things that weren't related to the Central Subway project, misappropriation of funds. And they all decided, well, we won't put that in the report, so delete that cost before you put it in. And we don't have the money to pay it back. So what we want you to do is, over the next 12 to 14 months, we'll put it back a little bit at a time. And every time we put a little bit back, then you put that little bit of cost on the report, and then it'll make it look like the cost came in as the money came in, and then it's gonna be fine. Excuse me, can I order the t-shirt that says "not going to jail for you"? So, Central Subway is an underground subway project in San Francisco, managed by the San Francisco Municipal Transit Agency. Pretty much about $1 billion a mile, because it is a 1.7 mile extension for $1.6 billion. And it had public support in 1989, only because of the Loma Prieta earthquake. So when we had the Loma Prieta earthquake, we had the bridge collapses, both in San Francisco and in Oakland. There was no disruption to Moody or BART, but they were like, hey, this is an aging system. We really need to do something about this. So 30 years later, we're going to do something about that. But anyway, that's how they got the public support. Since then, there's been ongoing public outcry. The public has spoken up repeatedly against what they're doing. They've made a lot of changes. They went from one street that they were going to go down, I think originally was 2nd Street, now they're going down 4th Street. They're disconnecting in areas. There's places where when you get off at one of the new stations, now people will have a long walk to connect to the bus. So they're not really connecting people, they're kind of disconnecting people. They're not giving the public what they want. They're not giving the public what they need. And I absolutely agree with your previous speaker. I am so into the idea of expanding bus system, expanding the bus, cover more ground, make them more, stop making it something that we're embarrassed to get on. You know, and partnering with these companies. I will have to admit, I'm the secret enemy in the room. I'm a bleeding heart liberal. I'm a Democrat. But I don't believe that means that that's supposed to define everything that I believe. I'm not going to agree with everything everyone says as a Democrat. I was at the march saying revoke Obama's Peace Prize. I don't think he should have gotten it in the first place. It's ridiculous. But we won't get into that. You know, so I'm here really happy to see that, you know, we have a lot in common. When we realize that we, the people, this is about all of us. And we, the people, need to come together. We, the people, is all of us. We, the people, is the U.S. citizens, and that's us. And who's doing this? Who's doing this is we, the people. Because everyone involved is an American citizen. Everyone involved should care about those taxpayer dollars. Now, what's really going on? What's really the problem? Do we need more government oversight? No. Do we need to write more laws and policies? No. Oh my gosh, now. We've got so much of that already. Really what we need to do is do what we're supposed to do. Make decisions that make sense. I was so funny. I was just talking to someone the other day, I was going to hug her, about the bus system. Why do we still have this antiquated, crappy bus system that doesn't cover much ground? I had to get to work in San Ramon. In my car, 30 minutes each way, even at 5 o'clock when I'm leaving. 2.5 hours on public transit. Can I work from home? Can I work? Their whole idea that they're going to force people out of their vehicles and force this and force that. Freedom. Freedom. And they really don't seem to be making the choices that will really get you there. In San Francisco recently, they just did away with weekend parking meters, where they're going to expand the muni. Well, if myself, and I have 4 children, if myself, my 4 children, and my husband want to go to North Beach, and please check out the SaveNorthBeach.com website, which is all about being against this ridiculous Central Subway project. And I was following that then before I even took the job. And so when I took the job, I let them know that I'll be keeping you informed on what I'm learning. And so when they said on their website, hey, they didn't send us the report this month, because the reports were supposed to be on the website every single month, I said, no problem. I sent them that report. Because we're supposed to be transparent. We're supposed to be giving the public what they want and what they need. And we need to be making reasonable decisions. High-speed rail. Right now, everyone's all excited about high-speed rail. I am so against high-speed rail. And these same folks, San Francisco Municipal Transit, Ed Riskin, he's the chair there, just had a meeting with the folks from Japan about their high-speed rail, and oh, we're going to get all these lessons learned. Lessons learned, they've been running it for 50 years. It's taking you 30 years to put up 2 miles in San Francisco, and it's $1 billion a mile. So you're going to take their lessons learned and what, get us high-speed rail in 50 years when we have self-driving vehicles like this? It doesn't make any sense. And so we don't have true leadership. We don't have leadership talking about where we really need to go. We don't have real visionaries. And so I'm glad to see that there's people here speaking. There's all kinds of different people here in the room. There are people who are working in the industry. There are people working in government that are here to be a part of making positive change, because it does affect us all. It affects not just our taxpayer dollars, but really, why does that even matter? Quality of life. It's about the quality of life. You know, if we were all, you know, living the way that people are living in third world countries, or even, and I'll give you a little bit of my background before I go on to the survey of the problem. And I have a few more minutes left. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I got my undergraduate degree from Santa Clara University. I got my master's degree from UC Berkeley. And I was always part of these, you know, advancements programs. And I was usually one of the keynote speakers. And the reason why is because I had a very unique story. My parents were all caught up in the 1980s drug epidemic. My aunts, my uncles, my parents, so they were all crack addicts when I was in high school. We moved from place to place, we lived in hotels, we got evicted constantly. Usually we get evicted and my school stuff was still in there. And I said, well, can I go get my stuff? No, you guys should have got your stuff before you supposed to get it. Well, I'm a kid. I didn't know we were getting evicted. So I'm often going to school, you know, without my books, without my supplies, afraid of the government. Because if I tell them what's going on in my house, well, they'll take me away, sure. They'll call Child Protective Services, but that's not a better system. They don't have better outcomes there. You know, so I really struggled a lot. But I decided that I wanted to make my life turn out different. And so I focused on the education and opportunity. But it was very difficult. I was going to school in San Francisco, Woodrow Wilson High School, one of the worst schools in Hunters Point. My biology class had no books, it had no paper, it had no water, it had no chemicals, we had no supplies. So when we had to learn how to dissect, and this is a true story, and she actually video recorded it. She went to the grocery store and bought like squid or something like that, and that's the best she can do. Well, you know, the biology of your teacher cooked some squid in class compared to you dissected a frog, you know, you're really not getting the same quality of education. So it was very difficult to move on and move beyond. But we the people, if we work together, if we care about freedom, if we care about opportunity, then there's ways for everyone to make it. And so for me, I look at these things and I realize that there's all kinds of people out there in need. And when we're not doing our due diligence, we're not really dealing with the quality of life. And that's why I was so happy to be invited here, because I like what this ABC stands for, because that's really about the quality of life. And so what's really our problem? What's getting in the way? Lack of ethics. Lack of ethics on the part of the people who are put in position to make these decisions with our taxpayer dollars. That isn't the only problem. And the reason I said we don't need new policies, we don't need new government oversight, we don't need blah, 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 is because we already have enforcement policies in place. We already have the oversight people in place. We've got the San Francisco Controller's Office looking over it, and we've got the San Francisco law offices looking over it, and we've got the FTA Program Management Officer looking over it. We've got auditors that are supposed to come in. We've already got enforcement, and we're spending more money as taxpayers to pay all these other entities to police what we're already supposed to be doing. But They're not enforcing because everyone is focused on their own little thing. They're trying to move up the ladder in their corporation, and where your tax dollars primarily go is to private companies where all of these things are subcontracted out. So that means when they say, it's crazy, the tree. SFMTA, well, the money is primarily from the federal government, then the San Francisco Municipal Transit, but they weren't running the project because they didn't have the talent in-house. So they subcontracted it to a major contractor, AECom, who took parts of it, and then they subcontracted it to another company who subcontracted it to my company, and that's where I was in the position. So you go to all of these companies, and everybody's elbowing to be buddy-buddy with each other because they all want to get more contracts and all these other kind of things. So the people who are in place to enforce are contractors themselves, who don't want to get the other contractor in trouble because in case they do something unethical, they want to make sure that, well, if you are the overseer when I do something wrong, then I want you to let me slide too. And so no one wants to do anything. Then you go to the San Francisco Comptroller's office. They said, thank you. This is crazy. And I told them, I said, you know what, right now, you have a $1.6 billion project. You're $140 million low on what the government requires for your contingency, which is additional funds in case other things come up. You awarded the contract in July of 2013. The contractor did not even step on site until 9 months later. How can you say that you're on schedule? That contractor has yet to provide a baseline schedule. How can you say that they can meet the schedule? They have had, at that time, $13 million in line items with zero budget. Okay, so if you really put budget for it, because you already spent it, also that means your budget increases. You only have $9 million left in your contingency. You already spent 13. You're already overrun by $4 million. And the major contractor didn't start yet. The major work didn't start yet. Ethics, enforcement, and empowerment. And it's time for me to wrap this up. Empowerment comes down to those of us here. Those of us who are on the job, the ability to really speak up and make a difference. I spoke up. And it's very similar to the VA scandal. Someone just doctoring Excel documents and not realizing that it has major impact. And it does. So empowerment, enforcement, we just have to do what we are already prepared to do, what we've already written, what's already there. So now, as I close, do you remember what you ordered? I will remind you what you ordered, because this is what I'm going to submit to the FDA. We are on time and on budget, and the customer has received order 3.089 for $1,000. So, what did you get? What did you order and what did you get? There you go. Unknown. 089 isn't even one of the codes. One of the sites here, and the reason we have such a difficult time with this, is that this is exactly how they handle your dollars on this billion-dollar project. Those numbers are real codes. Code 1 means, design. Code 2 means final design. Code 3 means construction. 1.001 means this was the preliminary design in the early stages, and it was going to cost $7 million. And what they did to cook the books was they changed those numbers all around, so your decoder ring doesn't work anymore. And they just said, don't worry about it, we're on time and we're on budget. But what I will leave you with is that on time, on budget, that program manager from AECom, his budget was $7 million, and he spent $27 million. But you ordered 3.089. There's no decoder for that. Can't prove it wrong.
There are many things you can do and have a long, prosperous, and happy career in the American transit industry. Two things you cannot do are be outstandingly competent in your job and not watch an important live go unchecked. Thank you.
Thank you.